everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Skeleton Crew. I'm your host, Jen Callahan, and today I have a guest with me. His name is Roy. He is the president of Medical Professionals and Medical Professionals located in France, and this is a continuing education company. So we're switching roles from being in the clinical and talking about AI, and we're talking about a portion that all of us RTs or anyone that is working within radiology knows that you have to do, at least in America, that you have to do your continuing education credits, and you have to turn those in every 2 years for your biennium. So this is a pertinent conversation for us currently who are in the field and practicing in radiology. So Roy, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you, Jen, for taking the time to meet with us and to address the radiology continuing education subject.
Sure. So talk to me a little bit about medical professionals. So do you guys, you have webinars, you have CE credits, and I also too saw on the website that you're doing something with the CQR compliance test that's out there currently.
If you don't mind, I'll make a long story short a little bit. I'll go back to the history of the company before we get to the continuing education part, because it's really important from that perspective. As we position today, as a company, when you want to be more than just certified, choose medical professionals. And that takes me back to the inception of the company when it started back then in 2002. The founder of the company is Hisham Al-Azam, who used to be, prior to creating his own company, Medical Professionals, he was 21 years with GE, and in the last position, he was general manager for Middle East Africa and GE Healthcare. And one of the frustrations he had faced during his term was he was able to deliver the most pertinent equipment and state-of-the-art equipment, but he felt that most of the users are not really using the machines up to its optimal usage. So he felt the need for trainings out there, and somewhere this is affecting the patient behind the scene, because if we don't use the equipment properly, that would affect diagnosis and the treatment behind it. This is how the company started, where we started by conducting clinical applications on the equipment supporting manufacturers back then. Fast forwarding, and throughout the application, I can tell you that we've been in 72 different countries. So based on our statistics, and our application specialists actually set foot in these countries, and they trained people on the equipment, multimodality. I mean, CT, MR, mammo, radiation therapy, nuclear medicine, you name it, all in medical imaging. One of the stories that changed as well the evolution of the company was one of the application specialists coming back to the management and saying, you guys said you should go out there and make sure that you're making a difference in the training that you're providing. We're actually making a difference in many cases we're not, or we're making little. And the idea was they are training people who had a certain gap between the technology, how fast it moves, and their education. And he said, whatever we're providing in 5 days, it's too much information, very advanced, to the point they can digest it in 5 days. I don't know what to do and how to do it, but I guess there's something to be done over here if we want to be really 100% efficient, and if we want to be really making a difference out there. That led somehow to creating the training materials, which I don't call, back then, we didn't call continuing education. We were not out of the continuing education business, but we really created some training materials that would be helpful as complementary to the application training and ensure that we're making a difference out there. Fast forwarding, today, we have two business lines. We have the application business, where we provide application support through different manufacturers, among others, Siemens, Samsung, Canon, and other major equipment manufacturers. We've worked with GE for 17 years as well. And the continuing education on the other side of the equation. Today, we have one of the most diverse library of continuing education. Definitely, it's approved by the ASRT and fulfills the requirements of CE and CQR requirements for rad techs, for sonographers as well, those who require ARDMS certification.
This episode is brought to you by xraytech.org, the rad tech career resource. If you're considering a career in radiology, check out xraytech.org to get honest information on schools, degree options, career paths, and salaries.
But most importantly, we really went beyond just providing credits. we provide continuing education. The content material that we provide out there, it comes with accreditation, but people will actually learn something out of it. And we have a variety of courses that covers multimodality on one end. The content is very rich, coming from real expertise from the ground after all these years of experience, and we're still on the ground providing this experience. And it has several formats, catering to different tastes. It has a video format led by expert explaining. We have webinars that are free, actually. All the webinars we do are free CD credits. We have the format that has PDF downloadable transcript for those who prefer to read. And we have an interactive format that has animations as well, where you can move on your own pace. At the end of the day, whatever we developed it in a manner to be, very frankly, leaving absolutely nothing for reasoning, explicitly explained with animations and designs behind it. And it's all catered and designed and developed in-house.
Right. I was watching some of the videos with the 3D animation, and they're very lifelike. I mean, it's a skeleton nonetheless. It's not a person, but it's interesting to see, and it's very helpful, for visualization purposes. Especially say if it was a student who might possibly be looking at these, so you can see the body part. I mean, sometimes trying to visualize where T7 is on a back, is kind of difficult. You can use landmarks, but looking at the skeleton going up against the chest bucky, definitely helpful, where they can visualize where the scapula is, because that's generally around the area of where T7 is. But I did want to go back to what you had mentioned about how the company first came into inception with, doing the training for the different equipment out there. That I have to agree that, you have applications come in from, whoever the vendor is, say Siemens or, Kodak or whoever, and you have these like 2 days where you have to digest all this information about this new equipment that you have. And then you're kind of like blessed, and you're hoping that you remember everything. At least myself, I'm a big note taker, so I'm trying to take down as many notes as I can. Someone is usually dubbed like a super user. So this person is supposed to be like, you go to them if you have a question about anything. And then how you said that like the equipment's possibly not being used properly or using to the best capability. And I feel like a lot of times that comes from, so if, for instance, like myself, I was just trained on something, but then we have someone who comes in and they're hired like 4 months after we just do this training. Well, now I'm expected to train this person on this equipment. So
Exactly.
almost like a whisper down the lane type of situation, that I'm sharing as much information that I feel like I know and I remember, and now I have to share it with them, and they have to digest that information. So I can understand the frustration and how the company came to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the path that any red tech has to go through in terms of continuing education, where they get the information accessible anytime, anywhere, in a reference library somehow, regardless of the manufacturer. It can be as continuing education, not related to a specific machine, but it puts the knowledge out there.
Mm-hmm. And even, I mean, I have to say the manuals that some of these equipment is, they have to be decoded almost, So and sometimes you feel like, oh, I'll just refer to the manual and see if my question can be answered within there. And sometimes it's not, or it's very...
I think nothing is better than a red tech to a red tech training, sharing information between red techs, a more trained one or more experienced one to other colleagues. That makes a hell of a difference. You got a lot of different type of training, but at the end of the day, if I had a red tech in front of me, he would understand exactly what I'm trying to achieve over here. And the frustrations we might face as red techs, or the red techs might face, I'm not a red tech, they will understand exactly what they are looking for and the type of information they are trying to decrypt.
Right. So I feel like technology in the past, 10 years at least, even past 20 years, has grown exponentially. Is it difficult for the company to keep up with the growing technology and, the new equipment that's out there for, I guess, in terms of developing, continuing education?
Our relationships as the team of application that we have on site is trained directly by the manufacturer on the latest equipment and latest options. That's one course of being up to date on the new technology that's coming out. So before it comes on the market, we're trained to go and train people. Definitely, we're not trained on all the different types of equipment out there, but most cases, all the major manufacturers, we are. And then again, by transferring this information to RadTechs, you would develop a pedagogy behind it where you can tailor it in a certain manner to communicate that information. Mind you as well, all the major congresses in radiology, which we go to, our product managers or application specialists or the consultants we work with, they are up to date from that point of view by following all the scientific and associations and all the technology or the techniques that's coming up. You've got the ECR, the RSNA, the ASRT Congress, several congresses in France as well, worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you seen major advancements with the technology and with these different you said the RSNA and the ASRT, like different conferences? So you're just gathering as much information as you can so that you're making sure that the company is on top of the current developments?
No doubt technology is moving quite fast at its pace, but especially being on the ground, not professors only behind their desk, but being on the ground, working on the equipment, working with other RadTechs, that makes the practical aspects of our courses really efficient whenever even delivered e-learning explicitly with some animations would communicate these information quite easily and to the most advanced new technologies coming up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you guys are located within France, and then do you also too have a headquarters in the United States?
Effectively, we're located in France, our operations, and we have another office located in Beirut. So our physical operations for all the applications is around Europe, Middle East, Africa. We don't have application trainings in the US, but our presence in the US is mostly online with our accredited e-learning courses.
Mm-hmm. So talking about the accredited courses, when you're developing new courses, is that I assume that you have to submit those to the ASRT, to make sure that the credits would be approved?
Definitely. And there is a hell of a process behind it to get there. We do get the accreditation when it comes to the English courses from American Society of Radiology Technologists. We have another accrediting body in France for the French courses, which we go through, and there is kind of a different process that we have to abide by. We've developed processes even before getting into accreditation, way back then, where whenever we got the accreditation, we wouldn't feel really a difference because we had the processes in place. And these processes help us maintain our quality, which comes from the content development and the clinical expertise up to making it in an animated manner available on site, on the website. Today, the way we're organized, we have our clinical expertise with the application specialist or the pool of consultants, mainly US radiologic technologists or French radiologic technologists who are expert in certain university hospitals or private clinics or what have you. This is the clinical content that we have. We have on the other side, we have the designers and web developers who are supposed to transform all this clinical knowledge into an easy to follow type of format. In between, we have our own product managers who ensure the decryption and the communication between the clinician and the creative work as well. That consists of the creation of the content. Then you have another cycle that goes behind that in terms of validation, validating layout, validating content, validating typos, and validating every single aspect in it, the animations, what have you. And the last step would be to submit for the accreditation, and that's another validation and review that we get from the association.
Now, in terms of submitting for the accreditation, so continuing education, always is assigned like, this is worth 1.5 CE credits, 3 CE credits. Does the ASRT, are they the ones that tell you how many credits you're allowed to say that it's worth? Or do you submit and say, we would like to have it valued at this amount?
They have specific processes or procedures in which they defined how they quantify the number of CE credits for a course, whether based on the voice over or the video lens or the number of characters, and other criteria. So we, ahead of time, understand these regulations and procedures, and we estimate how many credits. So we submitted with our estimation. But at the end of the day, is ASRT who defines the number of credits that it would provide.
Okay. All right. And then the webinars, how long in length are they? Sorry, I couldn't get that out.
we typically do it about between an hour to 2 hours maximum. So it's 1 to 2 CE credits. We try to locate it either lunchtime or after working hours before the rad techs get home, or the minute they get home. So we do it 1 to 2 CE credits live.
Okay, live. That's cool. And who are the people who are presenting in those? Are they like technologists themselves, or maybe doctors?
You mean the trainers or the attendees?
Yeah, the trainers, I guess. Maybe
the
what the
trainers are.
Yeah.
The trainers are usually our consultants and kind of scientific committee that we have in the US. So the trainers we work with in terms of development of the courses or delivering the courses, they are either professors working in universities in the US or working in establishment in university hospitals or hospitals, private clinics in the US. So they are people who been in this field for so long, and we had relationship in terms of developing this content.
Okay. All right, great.
So always we rely on rad techs, frankly, for delivering rad tech content.
Is there like a question and answer forum at the end of the presentation?
There is a poll in between. It's not a requirement. We just happen to have a question on the customer service support about this. It's not a requirement. The polls are the questions for live webinar. Live webinar, you would need to attend it completely, and that's the requirements for it to be able to get your certificate. But we ensure in there that we have at several checkpoints some polls, and the polls would ensure a certain interactivity to see how the attendees are grasping the information. Are they getting it correct or incorrect? That would tell also the trainer if he managed to get the information across, or if there is a lack of in certain areas where he need to talk about it, and that would also open up a certain exchange for people who want to have to ask questions. We try to make it as much as possible interactive with the trainer.
I know, because sometimes sitting down and just listening to something for like an hour can be so monotonous, I mean, you're interested, but then all of a sudden you might find yourself just staring off into space and thinking about something.
Absolutely.
Especially, I mean, I remember taking like 3-hour courses in college, and that's kind of how I find myself, but that can even happen, in just an hour.
3 hours takes about a nap, half an hour nap in between.
Yeah. Do you find certain topics are more popular for the CE credits that are purchased, or more popular topics for the webinars?
From our statistics, we figured that by the law itself of statistics, there are more X-ray rad techs than other CT, MRI, or specialty or ultrasound. So that makes it more popular, the X-ray topics, than anything else, just by the fact that the population of X-ray rad techs is more dense. There are more rad techs X-ray than other specialties. But we find a lot of people are interested mostly in X-ray and MRI more than the other modalities. Scan, there is huge also as well in terms of interest in it, but we always see MRI and X-ray in the top 2.
Okay, all right. And then do you do like different, obviously, topics within those brackets, but maybe something like thinking for X-ray, like if you work in an emergency room, you see some quite interesting things. Do you talk about, crazy things that can happen at X-ray, or, you know what I mean? Just to spice up the conversation of X-ray, not just talking about like imaging the pelvis or, chest X-ray, or, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I guess we are, especially in emergency, we see such type of things. We actually ran a test in France with different rad techs, and we called it anecdotes. And each rad tech, in about, let's say, 40 to 50 seconds, he would tell us about a story, a bizarre story of a patient who came to the hospital. And some of them not necessarily are bizarre, but are awkward, let's say, or out of the blue. These are nice kind of exchange that they have. But It's critical sometimes to publish all of these anecdotes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you giggle sometimes after something happens, and not to say giggle for those of you who might be listening and that aren't working in healthcare, but I mean, after a while, you're working in it and it's almost become like you become numb to some situations in a good and a bad way. But then sometimes you look back on the situation and you're like, geez, that was crazy. Like, I can't believe that happened. And and it's not even like, say, like a patient like going like crazy, like, like fighting with you or something, but maybe just the like the status of the patient, like all of a sudden, like the patient comes into the room and they're fine. And then all of a sudden they're coding just out of the blue and you have to call, overhead for this, and someone comes running in and like you just think about it and you sit back and like nothing about that is funny at all. But in the moment you're living it and it's okay. And then you sit back after the fact and you're like, geez, what happened here? Like, so, I mean, I can understand what you're saying with that, with the
one of the stories that we got that, and that's one of our own employees, when she used to work at a hospital, she got a patient on the table. Supposedly he was dead 3 hours ago.
Dead 3 hours ago?
But effectively he wasn't. And there's a whole story behind it where she told us it was kind of shocking, but at the same time, nice story where the patient, again, it was a mistake in terms of reporting his death. But she figured that out on the table when they asked for a certain autopsy because it was an accident that happened. And they wanted some X-ray autopsy or certain information, and she figured that out. Another patient that they met, it's the X-ray tech who figured out that the patient is potentially pregnant. Nobody really talked about that, and even the patient wasn't aware of that. But from certain behavior, he insisted on checking on that. And then once they checked before the X-ray, and that saved her and the baby from that perspective. So a lot of nice stories as well out there where the rad tech's been really heroes in terms of identifying certain things that were missed before or after.
Yes. It's crazy different information that comes out of just like asking some simple questions or, it's like a checks and balance situation, how it is with governments, but even within healthcare, that's why you have multiple people asking multiple questions. And I think that patients get annoyed and don't really understand, like, why does someone keep asking me the same question? Well, sometimes like I might just ask the question just slightly a different way and I'll get a different answer. And you know what I mean? And the answer that comes out is really important.
That's quality assurance.
Right. Exactly. So where are you guys developing in the future? Do you have any like cool new courses that you have in the works to come out for maybe the end of the year or the upcoming year?
We're continuously producing, developing courses in both languages, French and English, and we define our product plan usually by the end of the year. So for 2024, it was already defined back in October, November, with some adaptation that comes during the year. So on a regular basis, almost every month or month and a half, we have 1 or 2 courses at the very least coming up. We have updates on all courses that we make in some cases. So we define our percentage of resources in terms of how many updates we need to make, how many new courses we need to release. The recent one, the most recent one and the most interesting one, the one that you saw, the 3D animated positioning guide, which we put out for free, frankly. It was a hell of an effort that was behind it in terms of 3D designers, experts, rad techs, radiologists in France, in USA to validate all this content and to ensure that we managed to cover as much as possible everything, and I guess we covered everything, and to put it in a very direct point where people can find their answers immediately.
Right. I love that. I mean, I actually, there was a few on there that caught my eye that, I mean, I have my biennium coming up at the end of this year in December. So, and unfortunately, I always wait till the last minute to do my CE credits. I don't know why. It happens every few years.
It's not for you.
So I actually have my eye on a few of the credits, and I'd like to take a look at the upcoming webinars because I love new information. I feel like I've been stagnant in the terms of what I've been intaking in terms of radiology.
I guess tonight we have one coming up.
Okay. All right. So everybody, this is Rory joining me tonight. Not even tonight. Geez, it's the morning where I am. I don't know why I said so.
It's tonight where I am.
But this is Rory joining me this morning and this evening where he is talking about medical professionals and continuing education credits. So if you're in the boat like I am and, you're always looking to do something like that, go check it out. We'll make sure that we include the website on our Spotify and our YouTube and our Apple information where this is playing at. So thanks again, Rory, for being with me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Jen. Same here.
All right.
Great day.
All right, everybody, check us out next week. Like I say, you can find us on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. So we'll see you next week. You've been watching The Skeleton Crew, brought to you by xraytech.org. On the next episode, join us to explore the present and the future of the rad tech career in the field of radiology.